In 1962, the United States military ordered 22,000 Ithaca Model 37 shotguns at $33.60 apiece, less than the cost of a rifle cleaning kit. One trigger pull of the Point Man's M16 sent a single 55-grain bullet into the jungle. One trigger pull of the Ithaca 37 sent 9. Each one hit harder than a .380 pistol round. Hold the trigger down, pump the slide 5 times in 2 seconds, and roughly 45 individual projectiles filled a 30-yard cone of jungle, nearly double the number an M16 on full auto could deliver in the same window, with a hit probability against an unseen target in dense foliage that no rifle in the American inventory could match. The weapon that outperformed every rifle at the range where most Americans were killed was a pump-action shotgun designed during the Depression. 88% of all ground engagements in Vietnam were initiated by the enemy, not by American patrols choosing the fight, by VC and NVA units who picked the moment, picked the range, and opened fire first. General Nguyen Chi Thanh called it hugging the belt. Hold fire until the Americans are inside 15 meters, close enough to neutralize their artillery, close enough to cancel their air support, close enough that the fight is decided in the first 3 seconds. The man who absorbed those 3 seconds was the Point Man. He walked 5 to 20 meters ahead of the main body, alone on a single-file jungle trail under triple canopy. Every ambush opened on him. In March of 1968, Sergeant Chuck Hagel of the 9th Infantry Division walked point through the Mekong Delta with his brother Tom in the same squad. Hagel, who would later become a United States Senator and Secretary of Defense, described the role in terms that never softened with time. The exhaustion of sustained fear, the knowledge that the first burst would come for you, the impossibility of seeing what was about to kill you through walls of vegetation so dense you could not see 10 feet. Most line units rotated point duty every hour, some every day. Nobody could sustain it. The Point Man's M16 fired 1 bullet per trigger pull. Against an unseen target in foliage at 10 meters, a target he often could not see at all, that single 55-grain projectile deflected off bamboo stalks, fragmented against vines, and vanished into vegetation that swallowed 5.56 millimeter rounds like water. On full auto, the rifle climbed and pulled right, putting most rounds high and wide. The M14 was longer, heavier, and uncontrollable at cyclic rate. The CAR-15 was short enough for the trail, but shared every terminal ballistics failure the M16 had against jungle vegetation. The Point Man needed a weapon that could put a wall of metal into a cone of jungle in the time it takes to flinch. The U.S. military had one. It had been building them since 1937. John Browning patented the base design in 1915. Harry Howland, a designer at the Ithaca Gun Company in upstate New York, simplified the firing pin and ejection mechanism, and Ithaca launched the Model 37 the year it had waited for the last competing patent to expire. It became the longest continuously produced pump shotgun in history, but what made it a jungle weapon was what it lacked: no side ejection port. The Ithaca loaded and ejected through a single bottom opening, which meant solid steel receiver walls with no aperture for mud, monsoon rain, sand, or insects to enter. The Remington 870 and Winchester Model 12 threw spent shells sideways, a problem if the shooter was left-handed or firing from the off-shoulder behind cover. The Ithaca threw them straight down, fully ambidextrous, fully sealed. And it had no trigger disconnector. Hold the trigger to the rear, pump the slide, and the gun fired the instant the bolt locked into battery. This was slam fire, not a modification, not a field hack, a factory feature on every Ithaca 37 built before 1975. In 1967, Chief James Patches Watson of SEAL Team 2 arrived in Vietnam carrying an Ithaca 37 he called Sweetheart. Watson's gun had been modified at Frankfurt Arsenal in Philadelphia and Naval Weapons Station Crane in Indiana.
The magazine tube extended from 4 rounds to 7, giving 8 with one in the chamber. A duckbill muzzle choke flattened the shot pattern into a horizontal oval roughly 4 times wider than it was tall. The stock had been sawed down to a pistol grip. A homemade single-point sling held it against his chest. Watson called that weapon Sweetheart, and the name followed him through multiple tours into the hooches and canal banks of the Mekong Delta, and into a conversation that became the most quoted exchange in SEAL shotgun history. That exchange is coming. But first, what Sweetheart did in the dark. During the duckbill's test and evaluation deployment in 1966, SEAL operators carried experimental spreader-equipped Ithaca 37s into the Mekong Delta and reported good hits against moving targets in vegetation at close range. The horizontally flattened pattern meant the point man did not need to lead a running figure. The oval caught them. The Ithaca had proven the math. What came next proved the weapon. Quien Hoa Province, 1967 through 1970. Watson and SEAL Team 2 operated with Vietnamese LDNN counterparts on direct action raids, hooch clearings, sampan interdictions, ambush initiations along canal banks where the engagement range was measured in arms lengths. Watson's 8-round duckbill firing No. 4 buckshot put 27 pellets per trigger pull into a horizontal spread designed for exactly this work. Targets moving laterally through doorways, across canal banks, between tree lines, at distances where the walls were thatch and the darkness was total. At ranges under 10 yards, a standard 9-pellet charge of double-aught buckshot arrived as a near-fused mass. 1 wound channel. Catastrophic. The deep recoil pulse rolled through Watson's entire body with every shot. Between rounds, the metallic, percussive shuck-shuck of the slide racking in darkness. Then the next shot. Then the next. But the Ithaca's value extended far beyond the SEALs. Across war zones C and D, through the Iron Triangle, into the Ashaw Valley and the Central Highlands, infantry squads of the 25th, the 1st, the 4th, the 9th Infantry Divisions, and the 173rd Airborne carried 1 shotgun per squad, authorized under the table of equipment issued to the point man. When an ambush triggered at 5 to 20 meters, that point man could break the kill zone by laying down a wall of buckshot while the rest of the patrol shook out and returned fire. Here is why that mattered more than any specification sheet. The extra-hardened, copper-plated XM162 buckshot was designed for penetration. Heavy, spherical pellets that cut bamboo and dense brush where the drag-sensitive 55-grain 5.56mm M193 round deflected or fragmented on contact with stems and leaves. Foliage cutting capability. That single characteristic is the reason the United States military kept procuring shotguns even after the M16 was standardized across the infantry. The shotgun did not replace the rifle. It solved the one problem the rifle could not. And then there was slam fire, the capability the Ithaca's best operators tried not to use. Naval small arms historian Kevin Dockery, who biographed Watson, documented the SEAL community's position clearly. Holding the trigger back and working the action was considered a reliable way to waste ammunition and hit nothing.
SEALs trained until releasing the trigger and pumping deliberately for every shot became instinct. But when the ambush opened and the point man had 1 second before the kill zone closed around him, slam fire was the break contact panic button nothing else could match. Hold the trigger, pump. 5 shells, roughly 45 pellets, 2 seconds. The recoil stacked faster than any shooter could reacquire a sight picture. Muzzle climb was severe. Control from the hip was nearly impossible. But control was not the point. Suppression was the point. Survival was the point. In the first 3 seconds of a jungle ambush at point-blank range, the Ithaca 37 could put more metal into the kill zone than any weapon in the American inventory. 21st of June, 1970. Tan Son Nhut Air Base. Watson walked off the tarmac after a mission, the sawed-off Ithaca hanging from its homemade sling across his chest. An Air Force colonel stopped him. "What's that hanging around your neck?" Watson's answer, "That's my sweetheart, my 12-gauge. The shotgun's sound signature carried its own reputation. A deep, slow boom. Nothing like the high crack of the M16 or the flat thump of the AK-47. Veteran testimony and VC defector debriefings confirm that the sound triggered increased caution in ambush. Units who had fought Americans through 1965 to 68 had already learned what the scattergun meant in close quarters. The World War I reputation had carried forward through decades and across continents. No formal enemy nickname survives in English-language records, but the behavioral adaptation was real. The shotgun was known, and it was respected. Honest about what it could not do, past 25 yards, the pattern thinned to nothing useful. Multiple veterans described dropping the shotgun and grabbing a dead man's M16 when the fight stretched past 30 yards into open ground. In a rice paddy or a clearing, the Ithaca was a liability, which is exactly why the military issued it one per squad instead of replacing the rifle. And the duckbill spreader chokes cracked and bent under repeated firing, losing pattern integrity until a steel reinforcement ring was added to later production. Early SEALs simply lived with it. The men who carried the Ithaca 37 through Vietnam remember 3 things. The recoil, deep, rolling, felt through the chest and the shoulders and the hands. The sound, that slow, heavy thoom that was nothing like any rifle in the jungle. And the slide. The metallic shuck-shuck of the pump action in the dark, a sound so distinctive that point men reported enemy fire would briefly slacken when they heard it from concealed positions. The Ithaca 37 was not the most powerful weapon in Vietnam. It was not the most accurate. It was the weapon that solved the point man's 3-second problem, the first 3 seconds of an ambush at arm's length in the dark. The men who carried it remember the sound first. The rest came after.